I see that Bennett has now convinced you all, but I will try my hand anyway. I would like to congratulate the INSS, Amos, Udi, for such thorough and profound work. Due to timetable problems, I have only just come here, but I have been presented with the plan, and I've looked at it thoroughly, and I would like to congratulate you for the effort to put this issue back on the agenda. The current government has many sins, and one of the largest of them is the fact that since they have no idea how to cope with the Palestinian problem, they have simply taken it off the table. They have taken the biggest problem, the biggest bleeding and explosive problem Israel has, and have announced that it has no solution, and therefore there's no reason to be engaging in it at all. This discussion has been, this discussion is off the table thanks to the coordination between the Israeli government and the IDF, and because of that, most of the Israelis don't meet Palestinians. The Palestinian problem has to them become a theoretical one. Netanyahu is telling us there's no reason to think about it. Both on the political front, there is nothing and there will be nothing. This attitude is irresponsible. I accept your analysis word for word about the price paid by Israel and Israeli society as a result. The erosion, the fear that we are headed towards a one-nation and a one-state solution. My father did not come here from the ghetto in order to live in a state for all citizens. This is a Jewish state, and we must make sure it remains a Jewish state. And the security threat is also a very real danger. The Israeli society does not realize how fragile the quiet is, and the price paid by the IDF for this fragility in preparedness. And vis-a-vis this map of threat, the Israeli government has taken this threat and said the only idea they have is to make this our children's problem. Let them find the solution. Our children will not have to cope with 5 million Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, but rather with 7 or 8 or 10 million, and with an international crisis that is becoming ever more serious and severe, but that will be a different government's problem. So I would like to congratulate the INSS for almost forcing us to have this discussion, and as usual, very professionally based on facts and not desires, and this is certainly a much more serious paper than the government has ever produced, and thank you for that. Well done to you. As it often happens in Israel, when you give someone too many compliments, then obviously you have something else to say as well. So the compliment to the INSS is for the way and for the intention, but rather not for the outcome, because the outcome or the product, after you take away all the maps and the little points on the presentation, is to actually give up a political opportunity. It is not taking initiative in a very unique opportunity. You are trying in every way to refrain from saying this out loud, but without a regional summit, the meaning of what you are saying is just a series of unilateral steps, even if you're calling them independent steps. It still makes no difference. The fact remains that these are unilateral steps, and unilateral steps are a mistake. The problem is not each of the steps in and of itself. A road that connects all areas of the West Bank and completing the security fence, these are all Israeli interests. Minimizing the presence of the IDF in the West Bank is certainly an Israeli interest. We, at any given moment, have somewhere between 50% of our force. It also erodes our preparedness in the IDF, and also the distinction between the large settlement blocks and the isolated settlements are, of course, an Israeli interest. But so we have a very important foundation here for discussion, ideas that we can use. It's not left-wing delusions. What's presented here is much closer to the conflict management strategy of the right rather than the fantasies of the resolving the conflict we hear from the left wing. But these processes cannot happen without the envelope of a regional negotiation that has a very clear aim. Without it, these steps cannot really change reality significantly. If we take away all the technicalities, what is being presented here today says to the Israeli public there will not be a political arrangement. We cannot really convey the urgency to the Israeli public, so let's just go back to unilateral steps, but in a sort of updated version. And of course I support what Amos has said, that security should be left in the hands of Israel totally and utterly, but we cannot say that we have learned a lesson from the disengagement and then to completely ignore the main lesson learned from it. And the main lesson from the disengagement is that unilateral steps will not work. The burning fields from Gaza are just a daily reminder. Israel has left the Palestinians 3,000 hubs or incubators where they, greenhouses that they could have really prospered with. And instead they have let Hamas get power, and since then they have been firing rockets and mortar shells and kite bombs at Israel. And this is the proof, not that whether your steps proposed are good or bad, or whether there is an actual logic behind them, and whether the Palestinians on the other side share the same logic. Our conflict with the Palestinians is not a struggle for conditions of living. It is it's a struggle for life. It is not a territorial conflict. It's a conflict, a national struggle, a religious, political struggle that stems from deep questions and issues of identity. It will not change because of transport projects or all sorts of industrial zones. The terrible, heinous murder yesterday in Barkan is a proof of that, and it's not the first or last. My disagreement with you is not asking whether these steps are correct, but whether they will lead where you think they're going to lead us. Because in and of themselves, these processes will not help a political negotiation process. They will make it impossible. Each and every one of the processes you talked about is a potential asset in negotiations. In this negotiation, if I were to head it, Israel will not concede on the two core issues, Jerusalem and the right of return. Israel will also not concede on its ability to operate every area to the west of the Jordan River. This is something that any Israeli leader should demand, and with this threshold in mind, it is best that we have the most assets rather than also already giving them away to the Palestinians for nothing. Before I say what I propose, I would like to make note of something that I feel are the main weaknesses of the outline presented here today. The first is the Arab world. Like you, I am a great believer in regional negotiations. In an address in the Bar-Ilan University in September 2015, I presented an outline for a regional summit, and I have made many meetings with the Saudis and the Egyptians and the Palestinians on this issue, and I will go back to that. But the moderate Arab countries will not cooperate with technical steps. They will only come to a summit if there will be an agreement. They will not come, and we should not waste inviting them for a summit on building roads. The official invitation to the Gulf states in Saudi Arabia, the Sunni states, is something that you can do once in order to set the wheels in motion of a big regional process, not something that's interim and transitory. The next weakness is the Gaza Strip, not because of what's been said here about Gaza, but what hasn't been said. Gaza is a separate entity. We're talking not only about a separate geographic area, but about different Palestinians with different aims. We need to sever the Gordic link between Gaza and the West Bank. The solution for Gaza will not go through Abu Mazen. And the third point is Jerusalem. I object to any action that means dividing Jerusalem. That is first and foremost an ideology of mine. To me, a nation cannot give up its decisive ethos. the discussion about dividing Jerusalem conveys a message of weakness and lack of commitment to our identity. This is Jerusalem of King David. This is the center of Israeli existence. It is the reason why we are living here and not in Manhattan. The East Jerusalem metropolitan area that you are proposing here is just a sort of whitewashed name for dividing Jerusalem. We will not concede on Jerusalem like we will not concede on the right of return. And the question here should not be how do we solve the problem of Jerusalem and the right of return, but rather how can we reach a political agreement that does not include them, that by definition is a political agreement that is not final, one that will not strive for the end of all demands, because in such an agreement the Palestinians can say they don't want to give up Jerusalem and the right of return, but they will not get it. We waited 2,000 years, they can wait 2,000 more years. However, in such an agreement we will of course ensure freedom of religion in Jerusalem as we have done to date. The fourth point is the impact that such a plan will have on the Palestinians within the Palestinian society, but also within the PLO committee. They say that the modus operandi that is the correct one for Palestinians is to do nothing. BDS is working for them on the outside and demography is working for them in the inside. And at the end of the day, that will be their legacy. Arafat talked about the Oslo agreements as just fighting using other means. He never gave up on Jaffa and Haifa. That is still the dominant version among most Palestinians. In the plan presented here today, we're actually validating this notion. If Israel agrees to make concessions, and they don't have to do anything in return, and in 10 years' time we will again be frustrated, and then again there will be a series of concessions, and another, and all they have to do is wait, and they're very good at waiting. That is exactly how they saw every unilateral steps we have done to date. And in the Middle East, when you give something away for free, it doesn't count as generosity, it counts as weakness. And that brings me to the last and key weakness of all. This is not a plan. This is a series of steps. Some are better, some are worse. Most are better because very serious professionals wrote them, but they don't converge. First of all, each and every one of these steps, by nature, will have its own schedule. Building a road takes, let's say, 3 years. Evacuating a settlement takes a day and a political crisis. Another thing will take 6 months. For each and every one of these steps, there's a price tag. Political, economic, a detrimental effect on quality of living. Each and one of these steps will also become a hostage of reality. Any terrorist attack will stop it. Any appeal by the Palestinian Authority to the International Court in The Hague will lead everyone to say, stop the bulldozers. But not only is the schedule vulnerable, but this outline also doesn't meet another need. Who are we taking these steps with? A country, a state minus, an autonomy that can do nothing except cooperate, or a harsh enemy that will try to hurt us along the way. This attempt to create a sort of constructive ambiguity, as Kissinger used to call it, was also the basis for the failure of the Oslo Accords. If you try to hide the target or the objective, you will not be able to achieve it. If you try to make ad hoc solutions to ad hoc problems instead of defining an objective, then actually you're sort of just fighting with the different clerks on how to manage this problem. And a word that we hear about this conflict is leadership. The need to take leadership, to do the right thing. I believe that I can do it. I'm willing to do it. But this plan does not require leadership. This is just a tactical proposal that allows the government to avoid strategy instead of actually creating one. And justly so, the writers of this paper say that we are in a unique moment. We have a US administration that is willing to give us great support for anything we decide to do. There is an inner battle in the Arab world that means that the Sunni countries headed by Saudi Arabia have willingness that is unprecedented to promote processes that also take in consideration the Israeli interest. And for this reason, my argument against this plan is the same argument I have against the current Israeli government. Historical opportunities are unstable. They are like a window of opportunity. It will always be limited. In about a month, there'll be elections for Congress, and maybe half of the window will be shut by then. And also in Saudi Arabia, we have a problem with the heirs, and that will close the other half of the window in a few months. So thinking that we have time until we have industrial projects in 25% of Area C, that is completely unproven, that is completely unfounded. What I would suggest, and what I would do if we win the elections, is an initiative that will lead to a regional summit in Cairo, for instance, where an unfinal arrangement will be reached with a Palestinian state that will not include Jerusalem and the right of return and will meet Israeli security needs. At the starting point of such a summit, it will lead to a breakthrough in the relationship between Israel and the Arab countries. It will open up markets for billions in the Israeli economy, and it will open up cooperation and mostly a joint front against Iran that will push them away. The summit will not attempt to reach a comprehensive and failing agreement as was proposed in the past. And I was part of the negotiation team in the last government, the previous government, and it's hopeless. The international summit that I'm talking about, the regional summit I'm talking about, is one that recognizes that there are problems in the world that we cannot resolve. So we need to address the problems that we can resolve. An outline that recognizes the fact that if we are doomed to live in constant conflict, it is better for us to have this conflict with a state. A conflict between two state entities is easily managed, more easily managed, and is a situation that the world can live with. We can separate from a state. We can have a big, long, high wall between them. I'm not looking for marriage with the Palestinians, but rather I look for divorce. Actually harsh divorce. Unlike the right wing, we don't want to control the Palestinians. But unlike the left wing, we don't trust the Palestinians. They will be on the other side of the wall, but Israel's security will remain in its hands. Its military operational ability to operate will remain in its hands, and those who will be in control and responsible for Israel's security will be the IDF and no one else, certainly not foreign forces. And who will ensure that there will not be a Hamas state on the other side? The IDF. Who will build the Palestinian economy and its political foundations? The Arab states, the international community, and the Palestinians themselves. I'm certain that you, Amos, can come right after me and say that I'm wrong and you're right. I'm not saying that I didn't agree with anything you said, but this is the one thing that I'm missing with your plan. It does not address the Palestinians as people who also have responsibility. Any political outline presented, we should ask the Palestinians, why is it that you don't take responsibility for your lives and fates? Why don't you start to build instead of destroying? Why don't you create society and economy rather than being victims and violent people and whining? That is the central path. It doesn't have the innocence of those who believe that we can make magic and suddenly there'll be peace and negotiation. We don't have the delusion of those who think that we can forever manage this conflict without it becoming a bigger problem. Instead, we are proposing an outline for a pragmatic, non-final agreement that will reorganize reality between two states. As part of a regional arrangement, everything that will be presented, that was presented today, will not be assets that we have wasted before the initiative, but rather a central part of it. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry that I cannot stay. Please just bash me behind my back.